Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me. You're very welcome. Please keep on inviting people to join us on this important discussion. And even as you listen in, even as you're inviting people to join in, I'll just share the hashtags for the discussion this evening. So we have two hashtags. One hashtag is convenience or control. That is one word. And the other hashtag is no to digital IDs. So keep sharing the conversation live on your social media spaces, even as the discussion goes on. Good evening once again. I think we are going to get started. My name is Claire Davide. I am a data scientist, and I am happy to be the moderator of this discussion on the topic of the future of digital IDs. And as we discuss this, we are here to throw light. Is this out of convenience, or is it a form of control? And we've been able to notice over the last few years that there has been a push around the issuance of digital IDs, and some of these incorporate advanced biometrics, for example, the iris recognition. And these have gained momentum across different continents, across different countries, Kenya, UK, US, Uganda. And so even as there is a shift in technology, we want to streamline the identification processes and see at the end of the day, what are the drawbacks as this is being pushed for? Are there privacy concerns? Because if we're talking about digital IDs, there is a collection of personal data, but what happens when one has access to my personal data? Couldn't there be a form of identity theft? What are the security risks? But most important, at the end of the day, is this something that is going to lead to some form of control out of the surveillance? So even as we deliberate in this discussion, allow me to introduce to you our audience, our panel, this evening. So this evening we have 7 people on the panel. We have Mr. Semigabo Stephen, who is an IT consultant and a tech thought leader based in Nairobi, Kenya, with renowned experience in the technology sector. We have Ms. Rose Letitia, who is a minister of the gospel, and she has interest in advocacy journalism. And we also have, we are joined by Apostle Ndura, who is a servant of God, a pastor, a mentor, a motivational speaker, a liberator, and a founder of the Crusaders for Christ Ministry Synagogue, which is based in Nairobi, Kenya. We have Ms. Frida Nalumansi Mugambe, who is a research lead at Unwanted Witness and has expertise in the rule of law and human rights delivery. We're also joined by Mr. Emmanuel Mojoni, who is a software developer and currently a chief technology officer at Technovol Holding Software Company. And we are also happy to be joined by Honorable Steve Mbogo, who is a leader, a mentor, a motivational speaker, and also a change agent. And at the same time, we are happy to be joined by Advocate Daniel Bill Opio, who is a Ugandan lawyer and alumnus of the 2015 Price Media, and also has an initiative that is very interested in the emerging digital rights issues. So that is the panel that is going to discuss the elements of the conversation that we have today. And so as we get into the conversation, we'll start off by an understanding of the most significant benefits that modern technology has brought to our society. And I'll ask Stephen to just use 5 minutes to shed light around the benefits that technology has brought to society. Stephen?
Thank you, our moderator. I hope I'm audible. My name's Stephen Semigabo, as introduced. I'm honored to be here to share on that aspect of the benefits. First, I would like to thank all our listeners from wherever you're tuning in from across the world. Yes, it's quite an interesting discussion we have at our hands today, and I will attempt to lay a foundation on the benefits of technology, drawing from a quick narration that I'm going to try and put forward just about the evolution, like how has technology arrived where we are now. So basically, starting from the mid-20th century, we had the invention of the transistor. That was one of the key drivers of the growth of technology, and that led to the development of the early computers. In the late 20th century, we had the rise of the personal computing devices and the internet. And in the 21st century, which is also referred to as the digital age, we have had the proliferation of smartphones and mobile technology, the growth of social media, digital communication platforms, and then the big elephant in the room, artificial intelligence, which has the different aspects like machine language and generative AI. So the future, that's the past and where we are now. The future is basically heading in the direction of the Internet of Things with smart technologies. Also, technology is headed in areas of quantum computing and advanced AI applications. Now, these advanced AI applications are not the normal chatbots and personal assistants like Siri and the Google Gemini. These are now the next generation AI that we will be discussing shortly, maybe in the next segment. So the emergence of these technologies has benefits, and among the benefits, we've seen that it has improved the communication, access to news and information is real time. There have been advancements in technology in the areas of healthcare, enabling telemedicine and remote consultations, and also the improvement of diagnostic tools and medical devices. However, there is a key shortcoming as we advance in technology, whether it's in the field of e-commerce that enables global trade, or online banking, that's financial management in terms of access to your bank accounts. There have been some serious downside besides the benefits, and I'll start by sharing the benefits as I give a parallel on how those benefits really have, certain repercussions in terms of the technology adoption. So, for instance, if I'm to start with the benefit of, let's say, healthcare, it's good that medical records have been digitalized and that you can have your medical history and all that. But the downside of that, very many regulations across the globe refer to medical information as protected health information. Now, according to different legal regimes in the US, it's called the HIPAA Act. It prohibits that this information is, captured and is not within the, control of the owner. Same goes for different other aspects, whereby the benefits that are portrayed actually are outweighed by the disadvantages that particular benefit might be purportedly having. Because at the end of the day, you as a person, you need to be in control in terms of cases of identity theft, in terms of data commercialization. We've seen areas like in social media platforms where your personal data is sold to different organizations. And so as that is happening behind, our backs, we know that we really want to adopt technology, but then you realize that the influences, personal interests, commercial interests outweigh the benefit that you get. So in this digital age, data is actually likened to oil in the previous decades and ages. So the one who holds the data actually holds a lot of value. And data has become a commercial commodity. It has been used against people without their understanding. And so I want to summarize this introduction by saying that irrespective of the transformation technology has had in our lives, that is in our daily life, in our work, in our communications, in the applications of education, healthcare, smart energy, energy efficient systems, e-commerce, inclusive tools for persons with disabilities, there is that other aspect that we need to be very critical about, which is the safety and security and protection of our data. And as long as that is not addressed, technology becomes an existential threat to humankind. I think I would like to leave it there and hand over back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen, for those submissions on both the positive side and also the negative side, which is of high concern. You mentioned something around safety, something around security, but also the fact that this data at the end of the day is used for other purposes that are not actually submitted at the time when it's being collected. So from that, I would like to bring in Emmanuel to throw more light with the risks that are associated with the increased reliance on technology in our daily lives. Yes, Emmanuel.
Thank you very much, moderator. Good evening to you all. I'm happy to be here to share with you the insight I would like to put across. Yes, so like Stephen said, in the nowadays, we're having the side that is holding information. If someone is having too much information about something, they're actually indeed holding the upper hand. They have the upper hand. Yeah. So with the software that has been created in the nowadays, to someone out there who is confused on what software could be, they're just special instructions written for the computer or for a mobile phone, for you to like get some special functions. Just like, for example, you could see your mobile app. Your mobile app is an example of a piece of software that was designed. So you find that this mobile app has been designed and it's running on your phone. Let me say, for example, WhatsApp or Twitter that we are using right now. Yes, so the author of this software probably writes the code and then puts in specific code that will, specific code. I'm talking about the building blocks of that mobile app that is running on your phone or computer. So you'll find that there is an author who has written this software to collect data about you. Yes, on one occasion that we've actually seen this happening on a large scale. I could actually shock you that the Chinese who are in Uganda constructing roads, that was actually it was a data collection scheme in about just remember the years before they came, because before they came it was just I don't know what was there, but there was this rise of the Chinese coming through. Yes. What I heard from that was actually there was a certain government documents that actually leaked. Actually, they didn't leak, like you can find leaking, but it is from this thing of the government, whereby governments, our government, or maybe some kind of middleman, the middleman gives us software, and we're actually happy to have the software. Yeah, the government is happy to have the software because it's doing what it wants, but in the background, it is sending information back to the author. So this one person who I was actually talking to, you have friends who are in the computer industry. He happened to actually tell me that they collected information about what was going on in Uganda, and then the Chinese realized that we actually needed roads, and they come through with this proposal of let's build good roads, let's build roads for you, things like that. So in the long run, yes, the roads were okay, beautiful things actually, but there were consequences that we are to face, probably still facing, and that is control, which actually takes me back to here. Yes, definitely, it is definitely control. Yeah, and from if the person who has been collecting data from you gets to know about your weaknesses, maybe probably you for example, you have a problem in finishing the debts, so you find the debts accumulating, and definitely what results out of that is more control and more control. Owning this since you've probably failed to pay up, Yes, so to the digital IDs that are coming in, I saw that actually the essence of freedom is actually living as time goes on, and the most bit of it that got my attention was this eyelid thing. Scanning eyelids could actually open us up to very, very, very what you could say some dangerous things. Because there is a system. I don't know if you've heard of. I don't know if the listeners you've heard about this. In China, it's called something like the social credit system. Yeah. So this actually, the main input of this are cameras that are around the streets. So cameras around the streets are surveilling, and people are walking, and you are probably walking along the streets. It is at that very moment in real time, it is identifying whoever is walking, probably broadcasting their names to whoever is watching or whoever is interested. Now, to the information that you submit in with your ID, definitely the eyelids, your eyelid, the match will be matched to your definitely to your national ID and things like that. Yeah, so this can give rise to a very, very dangerous thing happening in China called the social credit system. I don't like this system personally because it is in a way it is playing God because you have to make sure you're doing I don't know, it's keeping people in check, but then the whole view of life is not actually this. Yes, you're having people who you are given more points for doing good things. Let me say, for example, buying a baby Pampers, you're getting more points. Then your points, social points, are reducing if you are doing very, very small things, like, for example, not crossing where the zebra crossings are. And if that is to come here, most of us actually do it. You just get there and straight away you are crossing the road. And then there are serious consequences with that kind of control that is happening in China. Yes, so you find you've been denied some services from the government. In fact, I even had your internet speed can reduce. Yeah, internet speed can reduce, maybe even for a penalty. Since your eye has been mapped to your records, whatever your eye has mapped to in the database can come through displaying your bank information. So some of the penalties that I saw were in fact, you've earned your money and from your bank account, it has been chopped off just for a penalty. Yes, so what I really didn't like about this was it's playing God. It's playing, I don't know if some of you read the book of 1986, George Orwell, something like that. It had a big brother. This one main system that is watching over everyone, even for the leaders who think actually you are taking charge of the country, you're actually not, because they are where orders are coming from, and definitely not God. Yes, more to that. Yeah, thank you for listening. Back to you, moderator. That's all I had for now.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for your submission. But maybe to add on, so how would we mitigate these negative impacts that you've shared from your IT perspective?
Okay. One of the most answer that I was seeing, was, we are studying, we study and we study their software developers around. My direct answer is going in-house and building software that we recommend to roll out, because just like how we're having a discussion right now, we would talk about what actually conserves privacy of the people. Just like I told you also, the other software that the government gets from out there, it is what I can say bugged. Yeah, when I say bugged, it's having a listener on it. Yeah. So I would for that, the main thing is, if we could roll out software that we create, and to add on it, once software has been built, there is software that runs in what I could call a binary way. Let me go layman. Binary way is the software is in binary form. So, for example, you can't see the code, you can't see the instructions that the author wrote to create it. So, like for example, right now you have a binary running on your phone. Let me say, for example, WhatsApp. Yes, that's a WhatsApp binary. It has been compiled. Yes, there are steps that software undergoes before it's given to you. Yeah, so I would recommend open source solutions and building software in-house. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. So we've seen that these digital IDs are going to be powered by artificial intelligence. And I want to bring you in, Stephen, to explain to us what is artificial intelligence. For example, if I want my grandmother to have an understanding in a layman's language, what is this artificial intelligence? Stephen, over to you.
All right. Thank you, moderator. I will attempt to, relay as simply as I can. But artificial intelligence is basically when computers or any device or machine is developed and given some capacity to do tasks that would require some form of human thinking or routine tasks, repetitive tasks. And this would include things like understanding speech, recognizing faces. It could be making some simple decisions. So basically, essentially, that is the underlying context of what artificial intelligence is. It is enabling anything, a machine, a device, to have some intelligence, some form of recognition, in terms of vision, speech, and the ability to make certain decisions. With that context, we see that the genesis of AI is what we are experiencing as of now. But when you look at where we've come, if I may just break it down, it has three components. Currently, AI is at a stage where we have the machine learning, which is a subset of AI. And this is basically to develop and allow the computer to make some predictions. We can call it predictive analysis. If you have information about Ugandans, maybe the recent census puts at maybe 45 million, and you have a data set that is information about the population, and you want to predict, let's say, the youth, the people who are within age-bearing group, you can use machine learning to try and create a prediction of how many Ugandans are going to be there within the next 10, 15, 20 years. So that is one of the subsets of AI. It's the machine language aspect. Then we have the other component called natural language processing. And this is what we have seen basically employed in personal assistants. You have a Google Assistant if you're using an Android phone. You have Siri if you're using iPhone. There is Alexa, which is an Amazon-based, AI. So these AIs at this stage, they can understand, interpret, and respond to a human being. So those are the natural language processing AIs. And then other chatbots, when you visit any website right now, or you try to get in touch with any company, mostly multinationals, they have employed AI to respond to you. They give it a programming to just respond to you, so they do not need an assistant to take your call and respond to routinely or frequently asked questions. The third aspect is computer vision. We've seen the development of, like an example is Google Lens, where it can just scan a photo and give you related photos. If it's a face of a person, it will give you different sets of people who maybe look like that person. So you can just scan anything and the AI will give you outputs of the same. The fourth category is robotics. And these, as we all know, have been developed over time. They perform autonomous tasks and semi-autonomous tasks. And these are also a subset of the artificial intelligence that is being developed. Where we're headed, and this is where I had earlier put a caveat, that technology somehow has a hinge on the future of humanity. And very many people in the tech industry have raised flags and put caution on what we would call the expert AI systems. Now, these AIs are developed to have and mimic decision-making abilities, and in an expert manner. So they could say this AI is an expert in this. So that takes away the human ability or cognitive ability or intelligence that supersedes what the AI can do. But because of the narrative that is being pushed, it is to show that actually this AI is smart enough or able to make decisions that a person. Now, this has very critical implications. I would not want, for people who use healthcare systems, you would not want to be operated by an AI robot, okay? Because it has been tagged an expert in heart surgery that would have ethical and daring risks in terms of the life that is being handled. So I've tried to break down those aspects of AI, and to round it off, digital IDs are just enablers of this AI. It is the missing link for AI to grow and have control over humans. Okay, when you look at the areas, very critical areas where AI is being adopted in terms of healthcare, that is something that is very critical to life. Like, you're putting your life at risk. In terms like a misdiagnosis, you're gone. A wrong operation, you're gone. The other area is finance, and I want to highlight this. Healthcare, finance, transportation. There in that area, we see the autonomous vehicles, traffic management, and there are also autonomous unmanned aerial vehicles, which now will transform to become planes, maybe commercial planes with no pilot in them. We have seen these critical areas. These are areas that for the longest time in civilization, man has had to, be the driving factor. But now that trust is now being put into artificial systems, into devices. And then the narrative is just believe that the thing will, be as good as, So the ethical considerations therein, there is bias, and fairness. Most of the currently developed AI platforms like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, when you look at the data that is used to train them, the data is already biased. For instance, if Google and all the data on Google search says, let me give an example that we can relate with COVID. You remember the time when during the lockdowns, when you'd say vaccines are ineffective, there would be a tag on your post that is misinformation. Now, automatically, the AI is going to pick that data and use it. So the data in that AI is already biased. It's already perpetuating and exacerbating the biases that are already existing. So that's one of the key ethical considerations. The data, the one who trains the AI determines the output, because we all know the basis of computer programming, as was submitted by one of the speakers. It's a simple principle: garbage in, garbage out. So these are systems that have been sold out as very intelligent, very ethical, very, but the underlying bit of it, the masked bit of it, which we do not see, is the most, let me say, fragile bit of these systems. The area of privacy. As the last speaker said, as long as your personal data, as long as you give consent, because consent is only sought as they're collecting the data and processing it. After that point, you're not consulted on how your data is used. This alarming bit of it has raised a lot of concerns in Europe. In Europe, they have developed the General Data Protection Regulations, but even all these legal regiments, they still do not address the underlying factor. Like, why take a person's biometric information, the iris, the fingerprints, what is it that is very, very critical that such personal and protected information should be handed over to these institutions or governments? The other thing about AI is accountability. Just like the big pharmaceutical companies during the rollout of the vaccines, they reached a point where they were not seeking consent and they were just mandating. So when it gets, there's a thin line between volunteering or you wanting to use the system out of convenience, and then the underside of it, which is the control that comes up therein or after they have gained access to your information. For instance, when you're signing up to Facebook or any other platform, WhatsApp, they'll give you tons and tons of, terms of use or what. And the moment you sign up to that platform, there's no further consultation. Whatever they do with your data is up to them. And so that is the other aspect. And the last one is transparency. Most of these systems, like the previous speaker said, you cannot look into the code. You cannot understand what kind of hidden programming is underlying in there. They will never disclose the algorithms, the decision-making processes. All this kind of sensitization and transparency is not given to the user. So I feel I've attempted to, unmask and bring out the aspect of AI, but to just link it to the digital ID, I want to highlight that the digital ID has been the missing piece of the puzzle, because the ecosystem of everything they are doing, that is communication, health, travel, finance, education, and surveillance systems, they have the linkage is with your personal data, which is the digital ID. So they will try to convince you need a digital wallet. You don't need a health card, which is different from a driver's license, which is different from a national ID, which is different. They will tell you just have one unique ID, which gives you access to all these services. But in the end, that's what the AI is fundamentally going to build on, to be able to track all these other systems and effect and put in place the biases that I have just talked about. Thank you so much, moderator.
Thank you, Stephen, for unmasking what the digital ID agenda is about. And my takeaway from your submission is that these digital IDs are enablers for AI to grow and have control over humans. And so as we deliberate in this discussion, please keep the conversation going. Our hashtag is #NoToDigitalIDs, and the other hashtag is convenience or control. So from that sharing and also the unveiling of what AI is composed of, I would like to bring in Rose, and Rose is going to share the perspective specifically on Kenya. What has been the situation? What is the journey? What is in the offing? Rose, are you able to speak now?
Thank you, Claire. I hope everybody can hear me clearly. On behalf of Kenya and digital identification, we've had incidences whereby I'm going to give two examples. I'm going to give an example of the Bill Gates concept that he brought into Kenya, whereby they took in chips and they had talked about taking chips and inserting in children, inserting in young babies, and at childbirth. And to me, imagine walking around with a chip in your body. To me, this is all about control. This is all about monitoring. And this is all about civilians. Because wherever you will be, wherever you will go, the governments will be able to track you. The governments will know where you've entered and where you've come from. So to me, digital ID, when I look at it, it looks more of, how would I put it? It looks more of a civilians, whereby somebody is monitoring you constantly. You're going in and you're coming out. And the other incident, one of the panelists has talked about it, is the iris, the scanning of the eye. And you see that this digital ID has come in different phases in Kenya. and you've seen people being rushed into it without even being told about, they've not even been sent, like they've not been talked to about this thing. People are being bribed to go and scan their eyes. They're bribed by being told, if you go scan your eyes, we're going to give you 6,000 Kenyan shillings. If you go scan your eyes, we're going to give you 7,000. So you find masses are going out of excitement of cash. They're going out of excitement that they're going to receive some money. But at the end of the day, what is the agenda? And when we look at this, we see that the main agenda is all about control. It is all about the globalists and their plans. It's all about the one world order. So it is up to us as a nation, it is up to us as a people to arise and ask ourselves, is this good for my nation? The other day I saw our president in the US signing a contract of billions of money for a chip company that is supposed to be built in Kenya. But have we asked ourselves, how are these chips going to be tested? Have we asked ourselves who's going to be the guinea pig for these tests? I remember around last year, one of the MPs, when they were talking about the digital IDs in Kenya, one of the MPs was talking about the chips. Now, yet here we are hearing of the chip company that is coming. We had the Bill Gates talking about chipping the young babies. So it is up to us as a people to come together and say, is this thing going to benefit the nation? Yes, it's exciting. It's going to create jobs. That's the narrative that is being pushed. But is it going to benefit us as a people? Thank you, Claire.
Thank you very much, Letitia. Yeah, thank you very much, Letitia. And I'll just invite Stephen to share the perspective from Uganda. I know you've shared it's already taking shape, and the idea is to have this introduced at a very early stage in babies. Probably they are supposed to grow up with this kind of technology, and the plan is to have these implanted in them in form of chips. So I would invite Stephen to share what is the perspective in Uganda, what is the journey, what is in the offing.
Thank you, moderator. Clearly, as the last speaker said, it's all about control. And the convenience bit of it, the narrative that is being sold, which is convenience, it cannot be related to any individual. I believe even if they were to do a survey and ask people, out of 100 people, how many of you want to walk around with a chip just because when you get to the bank, you automatically, ATM, it will recognize the chip and just dispense your money. You don't need a PIN number or what. I doubt that really many people are so fascinated by that. But when you look at the agendas at play, you realize that these systems being used independently, like you have an ATM card. It's a form of digital identity. You use it to do your financial transactions. That is sufficient in terms of privacy. But they do not want you to have an ID that you're controlling. They want to have a system where, everything is just on one chip, and then they embed that chip in your body, wherever they might put it, so that it's all about tracking your behavior, knowing what you do, what you buy, the same way we've been tracked online. I don't know if many of us know that every time you go on any website, there's software that is tracking what you're browsing and doing. So at the end of the day, you find yourself getting an advert on Facebook. about something you've been browsing about. So that kind of system is already in place. The idea, the concept is already in place. But just as you requested, let me build on the Ugandan perspective, starting with what we all know, paper-based IDs. You want, and each one of us, if you check somewhere in your wallet, you have something that is a form of identification. Okay, it could be school ID, it could be a driver's license, but it started with paper. Then they put smart chips on those IDs. And this was in the bid to have all information on that chip on the card, and then for easy, verification. But there was no form of tracking. Like, you cannot track that because it's just a system that works independently. It is until it is swiped on an ATM that someone will know you use this ATM. Then we moved in Uganda, we moved to the centralized data collection where they, take your details about your, it started basically by information that relates to you, maybe your background. But then in 2014, the National ID program was rolled out, and this is now when we got into the biometric registration. So this now started getting above just your identity, what you're carrying to show that this is who I am, but now this is who you are, like your fingerprint, facial recognition. And the justification to that was someone can fake an ID and carry that ID, but now if you put your fingerprint, we can prove this is who you are. So that was basically the push. From that, we can look at the current situation where we are. We've seen the East African passports being rolled out. So basically, your data is not just in Uganda, okay? You're using a passport across the region, and it can be authenticated or verified in any of those regions. So the data that is captured in Uganda somehow is being used across the region. So what concerns does that present? Of course, privacy, as earlier as I've submitted. The information you have, it's basically private information. It doesn't have to be, used across the borders. It can be used against you. Basically, if you're deleted from the database, you will not have any access to services that require, that form of digital ID to those services. I'll give an example of the lockdown mandate during the COVID debacle. We all noticed that access to certain services was limited, and there was a lot of discrimination and biases. For instance, if I wasn't vaccinated, there was a term that was joined at the time, anti-vaxxers. So just because someone has health concerns, they do not want to take consent to take a form of vaccination that other people are willingly volunteering to take, then they are locked out of the services, healthcare services, education services, financial services. That's the real danger of these digital IDs, because it's going to become very easy to do mass surveillance. It's going to become very easy to curb people's liberties. It's going to be used to predict and shape people's decisions, because they know we have control. So if we say you take this direction, you have to take that direction. The other thing is there was talk and discussion about implementing a digital election system. And it has also to be developed on the basis of digital IDs being implemented. So that I'll leave for people who have political interests. You had in the case of 2020 2022, the elections in the US, they had a lot of digital systems they were using, and these were vulnerable to breaches, hacking, manipulation, and all that. So where is Uganda headed in terms of digital ID? It is headed in the same direction where Kenya is, where the UK is, where India is. In this new registration of the NERA exercises, Uganda implemented a system which is open source. So open source is, as the previous speaker said, it's not a proprietary system developed by any specific company. Its software can be, its source code or the programming can be analyzed. But the problem with this is the interests who are funding this open source platform. It's called MOSIP, Modular Open Source. It's a system which is backed by private interests, like the Bill and Melissa Gates Foundation. And so these interests are putting money into the open source software to camouflage as if, yes, this is a system that you can trust, this is a system you can use, and it has been adopted in 11 countries so far, including Uganda. Now, this digital system is modular, meaning it doesn't really have to, you don't implement everything about it. They can choose to say, we'll only use it for birth and death registration. We'll only use it for this particular aspect, maybe access to social services.
All right, probably as Stephen figures it out, we can hear from you, Rose, share the perspective of the Lord on this issue of the digital agenda.
Thank you very much, Claire. Sorry for that. On the perspective of God, I believe in this time and age, the Lord is raising up the office of the prophet to be able to direct, to be able to lead, to be able to preserve, to be able to enlarge, and to be able to prosper nations. The Bible says in the book of 2 Chronicles 20:20, believe in the Lord your God, so shall you be established. Believe in his prophets, so shall you prosper. We have seen in this dispensation, in this generation, that the Lord has raised up a man within us that has spoken the voice of God, that has spoken the mind of God. It's so amazing that God is speaking so vividly in this time and in this season. And the Bible says that the Lord does nothing unless he reveals it to the prophets. And with that said, there's a particular prophet I would love to talk about who has given us direction, who has given nations warnings, who has spoken even about what we're talking about right now. He has talked about technologies. He has talked about technologies. He has talked about the globalists. He has talked about the things that are happening. And one of those prophecies, let me just say, is one of his notable prophecies was the prediction of the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, a financial heaven for tech startups. Prophet Elvis Mbonye predicted these events during his weekly fellowship on 6th December 2022, where he foretold a significant shakeup in the tech industry and financial sector. The fulfillment of this prophecy happened early in 2023. But it is so amazing that this bank, was financing most of the globalist agenda. It was financing most of the one world order plans that these people have. But is it so amazing that God had spoken of this? God had shown us that this will happen. I remember in that prophecy, he talks about technology falling. He talks about technology failing. And as I sat back and I looked at this and just listened to the prophecy and seeing the manifestation of this prophecy, where he talks about technology failing, the systems of this world failing. Imagine having a chip in your body and technology fails. What next? Isn't that scary? You're walking around with a chip, then technology fails. Imagine we're talking about digital IDs. Imagine having all your information in a digital ID and then technology fails. That means every detail about you will crumble with what is going to crumble. So it's really interesting and very key for us to give attention to what God is saying, to give attention. I'll give you an example. Look at what is happening in Kenya right now. This prophet had talked about it, but we can see the state by which the nation of Kenya is at. Now you imagine having a chip in your body, then the Lord tells you this technology is going to fail, and it fails when it's inserted in you. Oh my goodness. That is it's just, when I think about it, as in when I imagine it, I'm like, Lord, So, Prophet Elvis Mbonye's prophecies are often viewed by nations as prophetic warnings and revelations, providing guidance and warnings about future events. One of those future events is in 2018. I remember it so vividly as if it was yesterday. In 2018, Prophet Elvis Mbonye also warned the world of a well-crafted plan by globalists to bring the entire world under complete subjection. When we tell you, imagine the prophet comes in 2018 and he tells you this whole agenda is to bring the world under subjection. When we come and tell you, when they talk of COVID, when they talk of digital IDs, it's about control. It is about a plan that they have set up. When we talk about COVID, it's a plan that they have set up. What is the agenda? To control, to monitor, to have power over you. Yet the Bible says that the Lord came that you might be set free and be free indeed. Yet we saw in 2020, I remember this prophecy being given in 2018. And in the year 2020, we saw the manifestation of what happened. We saw how globalist agendas went into establishment, nations in lockdown, people in fear, churches locked down. And, that we saw churches becoming hospitals. Yet the narrative is one, control. And I remember in that prophecy, prophet says that the nations should arise and be the dominant force. The children of God should arise and be the dominant force and be the salt, and that keeps evil from running rampant. God is counting on you and me. I love what has started here today. It's very significant. It is very powerful. What is happening here today is something that is so great. So great. And I'm honored to be a part of it. That we are the dominant force. We are the ones that are going to be there to push this thing, this agenda of the enemy. I remember after COVID-19, the prophet came and he talked about prepare for another global agenda, for another global lockdown. And by that time, I remember I said, Papa, we've just come from another lockdown. And the Lord is telling us, prepare for another lockdown. Is it yesterday I was watching news and I saw they have begun a narrative where they're saying Joe Biden has got COVID. You know, Joe Biden has got COVID. They're telling us you need vaccines. You need these things in your systems. But what is the agenda? To depopulate, to take control, to put you in bondage. To put you in bondage. Where the Spirit of God is, there is liberty. There is freedom. So, if we talk about the godly perspective of this, I believe that we here are on the right track. May this be a conversation in every office, in every door that is open, in every area. Let us awaken the people in the nations. It is our mandate. The Bible says it is for the Lord to conceal a matter and the honor of kings to search it out. Yes? I hope I say the scripture right well. So, as a king who the Lord has enthroned in those offices, in those sectors, in IT, I've heard of different panelists here in different sectors. I'm seeing great people in the group. Let's start talking. And I actually remember telling somebody, what did the prophet mean by us preparing? Did he mean that we start collecting food and keeping? What did he mean by prepare for another lockdown? Did he mean we collect food, we keep, we do what, we keep? I don't think the prophet gave a warning for us to prepare in that way. I believe that this preparation is standing against the globalists. This preparation is for us to be at the forefront and say no to digital IDs, no to the agenda of the globalists. Thank you very much, Claire.
Thank you, Rose. I like the fact that your sharing is from one of the offices that the Holy Spirit instituted. And I know somewhere the Lord says that you will not see me until when you say or acknowledge that blessed is he who comes in my name. So from what I've picked from your sharing is that on the perspective, or from the perspective of the Lord, is that there is a prophetic voice that has warned this generation, a prophetic voice that has revealed the happenings, or that has brought forth what the people that have presented these agendas in different form has shed light to it. And on that note, I want to invite Stephen, because somewhere, Letitia, you mentioned that the prophet said we prepare for another global lockdown. So I want to invite Stephen to share from the global perspective. So we had national perspectives. What are your thoughts? Is this something that is going to be implemented globally? Is it something that is actually going to bring in the global lockdown that the prophet warned us about much earlier? Over to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Claire. It's indeed an interesting discussion. So, as you have guided, we need to understand the external forces that go beyond the sovereign nations, and how these forces are, adopted, and how they try to influence policy, regulations, and implementation. We are all aware of the UN Strategic Development Goals. These are global aspirations. They can be summarized as the Agenda 2030. They are very clear when you look at them, and I could say they are clear, sinister, and they look naive from the context of direct interpretation. But let me start breaking it down to local regulations and policy. And as said by the previous speaker, when you look at, let's say, the SDG that pushes for climate sustainable, the climate, I call it the climate scam, because there isn't anything like climate change, and there has never been anything like that. But it is a bit to introduce carbon tax in different economies, and the best way they have seen fit to do it is by bringing it as a seemingly naive goal, So how does technology enable this? How do the digital IDs enable this? As of today, when you buy a new car, which is gasoline or fossil fuel, inclined, like it uses fossil fuel, there is no incentive in any of the markets and economies. There's no incentive for you to do that. But in some countries, they have already started implementing carbon taxes and what they call 15-minute cities. So basically, they do not want you to have the freedom and liberty to use fossil fuels, but they will say fossil fuels are bad for the climate and the whole earth. So you're going to pay a premium on that car. You're going to pay a premium on the oil. So this kind of totalitarian and authoritative, it starts from the top. It starts as a strategic development goal within the agenda. Then they start influencing the ministries and departments in governments through lobbyists, through NGOs, through donations and grants. Okay? And to qualify my statement, I'll give an example of what's happening in Nairobi currently. Nairobi is under siege by the Gen Zs. Why? How did it start? IMF imposed certain conditions on the current regime, and they had to ingrain that within the finance bill, and that sparked the outrage. So the external influences cannot be underestimated, and I can only say that this is the driving factor of many economies, many national legislations, and many implementations of digital IDs within different countries. So when we do not see where the push, where the pressure is coming from, then we lose the perspective of thinking that Uganda has interests of its nationals at heart. We have seen this happen. I can give another example of the mandatory lockdowns during the COVID time. These were global rules or mandates being imposed on sovereign nations. It was a directive. This is the condition. If you do not hit to this condition, you lose out on this, you lose out on that. Another case I can make is in the area of the LGBT. You saw what World Bank did when the Ugandan Parliament refused to pass when it passed the legislation against. So these global institutions have harbored aspirations to control, and they do that through influencing policy, buying off politicians, creating coups, assassinating political leaders. They do everything just because they have a global aspiration that these digital IDs have to be implemented in every country, and that will give them the ultimate control. When they tell you climate change, carbon tax, you have to bow. If they tell you you do not use a gasoline engine, you have to use a renewable energy, electric cars, you have to follow through. And if you do not, we have everything, and we can control, and we can switch you off, and we can put you out of the economy, we can put you out of, exclude you from
participating in this, we can blackmail you. So that's the kind of global perspective. It's not going to stop in Uganda. It's a plot, it's an agenda. They hide it behind what you've understood, what you've been sensitized about, oriented in, inducted in, which seem like good agendas. But in the back end of it, they have their target, and your buy-in is easier when they present to you sustainable cities and communities, use electrical cars, climate responsible, what a sustainable climate, do not. So that's the whole global perspective of this. And it is proliferating through different economic sabotage. It's just, all round. I cannot just say it's only within the health sector or it's within the ICT sector, but it cuts across, and the strategy is to be awakened, know that this is a real threat, that digital IDs and AI it poses an existential threat to humanity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for shedding more light and also highlighting to us the different approaches to this. So from your submission, you've mentioned that this is an agenda. It's not something that is going to stop in Kenya, probably Uganda, UK, USA, but it is a global agenda. And right now, I want to bring in Miss Frida. And as I'm bringing in Miss Frida, I'm bringing in her on the point of what then should the governments do as far as regulating digital IDs is concerned. So we've heard from the panelists that this is a global agenda. It is already taking shape in different countries. But then above it all, the Lord has said something about it. We've heard there is a prophetic voice. Prophet Elvis Mbonyi has warned us. He has revealed this to us years back. So according to you, Miss Frida, human rights delivery specialist, what do you think the role of the government should be as far as regulating these digital IDs is? Over to you, Miss Frida.
Thank you so much. I want to thank all the speakers and for the contributions they have made. I want to also thank Digital Agenda for this platform, for this opportunity for us to speak and engage on the ID systems that are growing and are increasingly being embraced. To add my voice, unfortunately, with the mishap, I don't know if we've had also previous speakers bring out aspects on regarding exclusionary tendencies that are characterized by these proposed digital ID systems. I don't know if this has come out. But one of the things that can be done is to actually, we should be advocating for alternative identification as opposed to aspects where we are predominantly seeing these digital ID systems that are being proposed being mandatory. For example, with Uganda. The law, the Registration of Persons Act, is actually making the ID mandatory for people to be able to access more of a basic services, and we are seeing this impacting on certain key areas of life, communication, where you have to obtain a SIM card, movement, where you will need to require a driver's license, but you need an ID to be able to acquire these, including a passport, including a bank account. Opening up a bank account, you would require an ID, and if you don't have one, then you cannot. And this means that there are going to be people who are going to be blocked out. So as such, we advocate for alternative options, as opposed to, especially in the area where in the era where we have not yet attained universal access. The other issue also is in accessing these IDs. We've seen a tendency of a financial burden being placed on people, given the charges that are fixed to access these IDs, especially when it comes to replacements, error correction charges. These are very high, and as such, we are advocating for a revision in these fees, or even actually doing away with some of these high charges. For example, in Uganda, the replacement fee, as much as the renewal fees were waived by the minister, but we see that the replacement fees and the error correction charges are still high. It will cost approximately $14 for you to replace an ID. And we are saying if it is going to cost $14 for a cross-section of the population that is living below the poverty line and earning less than $1, it would require them to, for example, roughly get 8 days of trying to amass the 50,000 Uganda shillings, which is an equivalent of about $14, given the exchange rate. So we would want to see a situation where the minister can evoke, for example, his powers, and we have these fees being waived. The other bit also is on regard to technical challenges that are also disproportionately affect vulnerable persons. It would be good to have some of the technical issues surrounding access points, service units that being looked into to ensure that there's increased access by dealing with issues around lengthy waiting periods. These need to be revised. Failure to notify people of application errors, even notification to the fact that your ID is ready and it is ready for pickup. We also advocate for, and I've been listening to, where I've been fortunate to stay online without disruption. I've had some of the previous speakers mentioning aspects around the systems being devoid of any human, these systems failing to put us as human beings at the center. And with this, we advocate for the fact that we need to see data protection impact assessments being undertaken. Many of these systems and projects around these digital IDs are being implemented without assessments. But if we can advocate for these impact assessments being undertaken, these assessments will provide an opportunity to actually assess the risks and also mount mitigation measures to counter some of the breaches that are about to happen, given the nature of the proposed systems, and probably also the opportunity. Then they would also give opportunity to see that the systems are carefully looked at in terms of design, in terms of the management of the data that is collected. We also propose around concerns on privacy. I've had previous speakers raise some concerns around privacy concerns and data protection issues in relation to breaching of the right to privacy, given the large quantity of data that is being collected by the features that are being proposed. If we are to take an example of the Ugandan system, the Ugandan system, and even the others in other jurisdictions, even the one in Kenya, they are highly centralized, and because they are highly centralized, they that centralization creates a situation and creates an opportunity for these systems to collect a lot of data. And this data that is collected, there aren't enough safeguards to ensure protection of this data, and as well as storage, for example, for this data. These are all privacy and data protection concerns, and we therefore advocate for putting in place robust data security measures in place to ensure that the data that is being collected by these proposed ID systems is protected. But also, there is a need to also review the legal framework that is in place in most of our jurisdictions where we are embracing that are giving the basis and the background for embracing these ID systems. It is important. There is a need to see a situation where there's a balance between security, because their systems, their proposed systems, ID systems that have a background or hinged on security, and there's a tendency to hide behind security that they're trying to curb crime and all that. So there's a need to balance between security and obviously and as well as the aspects on human rights that are bound to be infringed upon by these proposed ID systems. With that, I want to thank you for listening. I wish to hand over to Claire. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Frida. So my takeaway from what you've submitted is there is a need to make impact assessments on this technology, but also a thought of robust data security measures. But the key submission that stood out was the bit to look into alternative identifications as opposed to the use of digital IDs. And on that note, I would like to invite Stephen to add on. What do you think the government should do in regards to regulating these digital IDs?
Thank you, moderator. I would like to thank Madam Frida for that wonderful and very detailed take on this. I will attempt to add, but I think she's covered most of the areas. One, I would want to put forward the fact that if there's nothing broken, why fix it? Okay.
from that point of view, I do trust the government that they have the best interests for the citizens. But from past experiences, it's been hard lesson that if there is, for instance, something that is of ethical concern, erodes civil liberties, has potential to, control and affect the core tenets of one's existence. It becomes a hard subject to even discuss. I would, usually there is say, do not throw away the child with the bathwater. But in this case, there are sensitive subjects that sometimes it becomes very hard to try to agree with the government, in the sense that we would believe that they would, for instance, like you stated, conduct impact assessments, put in place data protection and enough security, and that's the whole point I'm trying to. So, in my to summarize my submission, it would be if alternative IDs, are effective, and if I need to go to the bank and open a bank account, and all I need is to fill a know your customer form, and I interface with the person there, and that if that's sufficient, then why push for my biometrics, for sensitive personal information? So just to emphasize, governments are composed of people like us. I think what we can do is to appeal to them to have an understanding, enlighten them to have an understanding of the dangers of this, of what they are attempting to do by, crossing the parameters of what would consider, privacy. And then at that point, perhaps we could, look at, like you said, or the previous speaker said, alternative means of identification, because that way your personal data is safe, your privacy is not, encroached on. You have control. Every citizen has control, and those who want to consent and feel they want to be out there and use these digital systems and consent to giving their personal data, I think those can be an exception. But generally, if there is no particular drive or essence, because convenience, if you tell me walk to the store and buy something or order it online, if I can walk there, I can walk. I have an option. Okay, so you see, it's not something that is quote unquote necessary, for you to have to put a digital form of identification for someone to be able to transact, to be able to access services, to be able to enroll into a system, to be able to access healthcare, So that's why I draw the line, and I want to be categorically clear that in the use of all these systems, once the disadvantages or the merits outweigh the merits, then I don't think even government should be attempting to take that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen, for that add-on. And as we prepare to welcome questions from the audience, the key points from your submission is mainly around enlightening the governments to have a proper understanding of the disadvantages or the dangers in regards to digital IDs, and one of them mainly being control of people's lives, control of everything in regards to what people can access, the locations, and so on and so forth. So I'd like to invite the audience to present their questions to the panelists. You can type in the chat or you can unmute. You can type in the chat in case you are not able to speak. But as the audience prepares, I'll invite the panelists to submit their key takeaways on this discussion around the future of digital IDs in 2 minutes. Yes, Emmanuel, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, moderator. Like we've discussed, we've seen actually we got independence. Well, let me just talk about independence, like how it used to be back then. It was colonialism, independence from colonialism. So we are actually faced again more with actually something more dangerous. It is definitely more dangerous because actually right now the oppressor is hiding way behind. Back then a rebellion would take it off, and then the oppressor would probably get scared or something, run away, things like that. But things have gone next level right now. In computing, we have something called there is software that runs in the background. It has a funny name. Actually, it's called a daemon. It takes so much effort to put it down for it to stop and for other things to proceed. But yes, it's time for it's time for serious action on these ones. Let me see. Yes, there is something I'd also seen, something I had taken from the point of the chips that are to be embedded in bodies. The chips are actually dangerous. Something actually came to my mind that these guys can actually, the globalists or whoever is in charge of that chip could actually be in charge of making the whole population feel a certain way, maybe depression. You've heard of these lots of what are they called, disorders that are coming up, and these the people are quick to jump to them for giving them names, things like that. Yes. Yeah, that's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. So we'll just get back to the questions briefly before we get back to the panelists. Evelyn, please go ahead and present your question.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Kindly confirm that I'm loud and clear.
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. Thank you once again for moderating this timely discussion and for each one of the speakers for your valuable input. Now, I have 2 questions. Someone that's listening to this conversation tonight could say this is a case of an ostrich sticking its head in the sand and not wanting to realize what's going on around them. And so I have these questions just so the speakers can help shine more light on that. For example, I think it was maybe last month or early this month, thereabout, the World Economic Forum held their annual meeting, and AI and digitalization of economies was top of the agenda. And according to them, or according to the studies that have been gathered in the recent past, it has been estimated that more than 2/3 of new value created over the next decade will come from digitally enabled platforms, and that AI is also quickly or fast permeating various industries. And so their argument for advancing AI, for advancing digital IDs, is that it should be able to help build capacity and international standards so that emerging economies can participate fully in global trade. So the question is, one, I would like to hear the speaker's comments on the assertions by the World Economic Forum, because from their analysis, it seems like this is where the world must head for it to thrive, for it to be able to participate in trade, for it to be able to create new value, or be able really to participate in matters of the economies. That's my first question. What your comment is on that? Yeah. Then secondly, I had, I think it was Rose Letitia making reference to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and wanting to introduce chips in children in Kenya. And again, they've given various reasons from time to time as to why they think that kind of system would be important. One, that it appears, especially in low to middle income countries, or what they call underdeveloped or whatever, there's lack of acceptable form of legal identity. Yeah. In other words, even the identity that's seemingly in place does not meet international standards, if they get it at all. That is one. Two, the ability to have that, and keyword here is acceptable. So I'd like our panelists to help us understand, or help me understand, what is acceptable, what passes for an acceptable form of identification. That is one, because I'd like to think that in Kenya or Uganda, we already have some form of identification. So when people like those suggest that it's currently not in place, I'm a bit confused on what that is. Secondly, obviously, the argument is to enable people access all these different services I think Stephen was talking about: employment, education, banking, government, all of that, healthcare as well. And then now on the issue of children, specifically to what Rose was highlighting. Again, I think their argument, especially for wanting to introduce it in children, is that more than half of those lack a proof of identity. And there's so many children whose births have not been registered. So what that means is that they go on or they progress, but really their data has not been captured. I don't know how true that is, and I also don't know how detrimental it is, or that it cannot be remedied alternatively without having to introduce digital IDs. And also their other argument, if I remember correctly, is that even those that have identification, it's not suitable, or it doesn't fit into the digital age. So it's sort of there, but it's sort of obsolete. Yes, considered obsolete. So I'd just like our speakers to weigh in on that, because for the people that buy into the idea of digital IDs, of course, convenience and things like that, but also in a digital age, so to say, do paper IDs still pass? Are they still sufficient? Or if we're speaking about alternatives, are we still speaking about digital alternatives? I'd like to get some clarity from the speakers on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. I'll invite Ms. Frida to react to the first question, and Rose can react to the second question.
Thank you so much, and I wish to thank our listeners for the question so far. In regard to the outcomes of the World Economic Meeting and the advancement and the agenda for advanced use of technology, I want to say that we should not lose hindsight of the fact that states world over are independent, and that counts for something. And it is not that every agenda that comes, that is put out there, should be embraced by our governments. I also believe that this is where the whole question comes in on us being, as citizens, being vigilant and being empowered to be able to hold our governments accountable. Because for any agenda that should be brought into any country, there needs to be a process that takes inventory of what this agenda stands to benefit the country and the people, but also what are the potential impact that it would have on the citizenry. So in the aspect of if we could just for a moment just think through, or in the aspect of digital ID systems specifically, we already have in place. I don't know if previous speakers did allude to the existence of guidelines, for example, guidelines that are in place on what an acceptable ID system looks like, that help to ensure that we do not just take on things as they come. If a system is being proposed, it should be subjected to some form of inventory, and we should be questioning it to establish whether it is human rights based. Is it compliant with the aspects in regard to inclusivity, the fact that data can be protected? The futures are accommodative, but do not necessitate collecting of unnecessary data, because the question of necessity comes in critically. Is the data that is being collected should be necessary, and if it is not necessary, then why put in place features that collect excess data, which is actually personal data? So agendas being proposed at these platforms, whether it is systems we are taking on, whether it is financial management systems, or name it, these are things that we as a citizenry need to question when they are brought, and hold our governments accountable. Thank you. Over to you, Claire.
Thank you, Ms. Frida, for your submission. And I know you touched the second question around the acceptable form of identification. So we will summarize with the key takeaways. I'll invite Stephen to summarize in 1 minute, and Ms. Frida as well.
Okay, thank you, moderator. I think I'll summarize from the angle after everything's said and done. The globalists, any form of association or nation that is pushing these agendas, I can only summarize it in one statement: neocolonialism. Uganda, as an independent and sovereign state, needs to take stock of what is within the best interest of its citizenry. Each country should implement IDs, national IDs, or any form of identification based on their aspirations and based on their social cultural values. And I think that would put away all the risks that are attached to any form of digital platforms that are centralized, lack of proper security, even when promises of protecting and securing the data are made. The legal implementations should try to make provision that the data captured for any form of ID, digital or not, should be at a bare minimum. That's a design principle, that you don't have to have excess data, like the Madam Frida said. You do not have to have someone's biometrics for you to be able to identify them. Okay, so they have a birth certificate, if they have any other form of documentation that is attached to who they are, that's enough for identification, authentication, and authorization. So I would like to leave it at that, and just again put it out clearly that the path of digital ID, which was the missing link for AI, is posing an existential threat to humanity, because the extent of what it can do is not clearly, envisaged. It cannot be put under control, and then the data exchange between these systems, when they grow and they become, it becomes very, very complex. And then the fact that a layman does not even understand what is that source code, what is that programming behind that system that they are presenting their privacy and liberty to. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, thank you, Stephen, for that key submission. I'll invite Ms. Frida to also share her key takeaways.
Thank you so much. Just to take it from Stephen, where also where we have situations that the digital IDs are being embraced, and they are already in the country, which is the case, for example, with Uganda and Kenya. We should remain alert to the fact that they are introducing a host of pressing human rights concerns, as already highlighted by previous speakers, and the concerns that have been raised. And the incorporation of sensitive biometric data serves as a stark reminder of the critical need to protect privacy and uphold data protection principles. We've seen that already the proposed digital systems in place have not adequately aligned themselves to the privacy and data protection laws and regulations in some of these jurisdictions, and the case is for Uganda and Kenya. And as such, there's a need for a delicate balance that must be struck between inclusivity, privacy, minimal data collection, robust security, transparency, informed consent, and obviously vigilant oversight to fortify the systems against the looming human rights challenges they present. I thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Frida. Thank you so much, all the panelists, for your submission. I know that this has shed light on the digital IDs, what is taking shape for those of us in the audience who are not really aware of what's happening, and the fact that this is being powered by artificial intelligence, but most importantly, the agenda behind it, that this is around control. And even as we influence in the different positions or the different platforms we are based, we need to be key around it. And still just to speak over the takeaways and the submissions that have been made, the fact that this, in one way or another, contributes to the digital divide. There is so much around privacy. There is so much around security concerns. At the end of the day, if we accept all this data to be collected in the name of digital IDs, is it really important? And so there has been a submission around we only submit data that is of need, of necessity on that note, or minimal data. And of course, an issue around inclusivity. I mentioned something around digital divide. So the fact that some of the people cannot access these resources, where does it leave them? But most importantly, the bit about control. So even as it's taking shape, we need to key in and be able to advise the governments accordingly. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining in this discussion. We hope it has shed more light on what is happening around the globe in the name of digital IDs. And we hope that at the end of the day, we are able to use this information so that we push this thing back. Because like we had much earlier, that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. So if this is a form of control, then that means that there is no, the Spirit of the Lord is not there. So with that said, thank you very much, the panelists, for the discussion. Thank you very much to the audience for joining in from Digital Agenda. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you.